Leaders are the number one factor for guarding psychological safety in an organization. It can't be perfect all the time. They want leaders to seek input, especially from those that are quiet. They want inclusion. And that distance between you and that director or that ED or your CEO is so far, right? You want them closer. You want to be able to speak to them. You want to be able to meet them in the halls, interact with them. You want to be able to talk about other things apart from work. So all these things lend to the leader being so important for you.
Ensuring a healthy psychosocial working environment is a theme of the 2026 International Workers' Day celebration. And then in this edition, we'll be examining this particular theme, vis-a-vis how it affects workers in the workplace in the various, organizations. And to have this conversation with me today is Dr. Zainab Kyari. She's a special advisor to the Executive Director of Maritime Labor and Capital Services of Nimasa. You're welcome, ma.
Thank you for having me, Femi.
Thank you, ma. Now, so, as the theme says, ensuring a healthy psychosocial working environment. Now, when you talk about psychosocial working environment, what does it mean in the work environment?
Okay. In layman's terms, psychosocial means how the environment affects our insides. By insides, I mean our mental health, our stress levels, and our sense of purpose. And there are some factors that affect this. Actually, in summary, it's about how work or the job is designed, how it is administered, and how it is experienced by employees.
Thank you. Now, you said something about how it affects the mental health, and the stress level, at various workplaces, which is a very germane issue right now. People talk about mental health nowadays. Now, can you explain how does this, psychosocial, behavior, attitude, how does it affect people in workplace? Talking about their mental health and, of course, the stress levels that they go through.
Okay. But before we go to that, I think we should talk about the factors that affect psychosocial well-being in the workplace, right? We talk about the workload, we talk about job autonomy, we talk about the working relationships, we talk about the leadership quality. We also talk about job satisfaction, right? All these are factors, some of the factors that affect the psychosocial conditions in the workplace. Now, obviously, mental health has been found, especially by this report you made reference to. It is directly related to leadership behavior. I spoke about leadership quality.
Yeah.
Leadership quality is how the leader interacts, relates, and supports the employee in the workplace. Now, once you find poor leadership in the sense of you micromanage, you keep moving timelines, employees are not clear about their roles. It causes anxiety and stress. This anxiety and stress can lead to depression, and this directly relates to poor mental health.
Okay, fine. Now, you talk about job satisfaction,
Yes.
which is a point of interest to me and I guess to our viewers out there. Now, may I ask, what is job satisfaction? Because what satisfies one person may not satisfy another person, which also somehow by extension affects the person's way of thinking or reasoning, and even affects maybe outputs in workplaces. So what do you define as job satisfaction?
Well, research has told us that job satisfaction is directly related to autonomy. Autonomy to an employee means what control do they have over how they work, when they work, and where they work. Once an employee has an input in this, it increases their job satisfaction, right? Also, job security has an impact on job satisfaction. When you are confident that there's no threat to your role or to your position, then it increases your job satisfaction. So these are some of the two factors. Other things to play a role, but these are the two major factors.
Now, you talk about leadership. Leadership is very, very key in various organizations. We have different kinds of bosses. We have servant leaders. We have leaders who are boss, right? Now, how does the relationship between the boss and their subordinates. You know, I'll take it back to secondary school, so to say, maybe. I remember when we were in class, when you fear a particular teacher, it's very difficult for you to pass that subject because, oh, maybe mathematics, for example, it comes in that you're afraid. Now, how does the relationship between the boss and the subordinate affects the output in the workplace?
Leadership quality is the most important factor, closely followed by the workplace relationship, even the relationship with your peers. Okay? So the leader is supposed to support the organization, the employee. Google had a research and they found that that was the number one factor that employees rated, the number one leadership factor that employees rated. They want a supportive leader. They want leaders that show vulnerability. You can't be perfect all the time. They want leaders to seek input, especially from those that are quiet. They want inclusion. Okay? So once an employee feels that he can talk to the leader, he can express himself to the leader, that leader gives him psychological safety. Psychological safety means, very important, it means that the employee can speak up freely about his emotions, his challenges, whatever. Increasingly, leaders are the number one factor for guarding psychological safety in an organization. Now, these leaders need training. They need information for them to provide that kind of support to employees. So taking you back to your example of secondary school, if you recall, the teachers we liked were the ones that would stand just with us, talk to us about things that didn't have to do with school, weren't scolding us all the time. Sometimes that would lead to us understanding that subject better. Yes. Once you are able to relate with that leader, which brings another thing into focus, the power distance relationship between an employee and the leader. That distance shouldn't be so far, which is the disadvantage that organizations have, like government organizations or military organizations, where it's a hierarchical structure. You understand? That distance between you and that director or that ED or your CEO is so far, right? You want them closer. You want to be able to speak to them. You want to be able to meet them in the halls, interact with them. You want to be able to talk about other things apart from work. So all these things lend to the leader being so important, Femi.
This communication thing, you should be able to, speak out your mind without fear of, being stigmatized, without fear of being, let me use the word, victimized.
Yes.
Right. But then, how do you encourage your staff to speak up? And then to ensure that you also protect what policy should be in place to protect staff who, for some reasons, they've been bullied or they've been harassed and they have the means to speak up. And because they spoke up or because they said something about that, somewhere, somehow, they get victimized. How do you encourage this kind of people so that they don't die in silence, having mental issues, having anxiety, and of course, affecting their work outputs?
Okay. So it's tough because it's people, right? And then, unfortunately for us in government, because of our hierarchical structure, everything has to pass through that supervisor. That supervisor you're complaining about.
Exactly.
Okay, but government organizations need to be encouraged to explore other things. For example, the NHS have something they call Speak Freely Ambassadors. You could meet any one of them in the organization. You could email any one of them in the organization, and your matter would be examined, investigated. You understand? And you would be treated fairly without fear of retribution. In fact, it's encouraged. It's encouraged. So novel ideas like that should come up from organizations. There's no one size fits all for all organizations. But I encourage organizations are full of brilliant people. They should be encouraged to look out and see what they can imbibe in their organization.
Okay, so I will say this before we wrap up now. Nigerians are very resilient people. They wake up very early in the morning, maybe Lagos and every other parts of the country, just to go and put food on their table, and pay school fees, pay rent, and then just make a life for themselves. And then somebody out there is already discouraged. Like, I'm just working. I can't even. I have nothing to show for it. I'm working. What do you have to say to that person?
I'll encourage the person because I would like to tell the person that everybody you see on Instagram, on Twitter, or your friends or your classmates or whatever that you feel have moved ahead of you, most of them have been in that position that you are in now. Be optimistic. I believe that what you feel on the inside attracts. If you're optimistic, opportunities will be attracted to you. I just want to encourage you. And then that's your inside, what you should feel inside. On the outside, don't sit at home. Don't allow depression, get to you. Make friends. Any opportunity you have, with your colleagues, with any projects you're on, put your best. You don't know where those opportunities would lead you to. Who is watching you, who's not watching you, what contacts you would make. That's my advice to you. And your tomorrow would be so much brighter. I'm sure you would even forget this state that you're in right now. I want to encourage you.
Thank you very much. Now, finally, Dr. Zainab Kyari
Yes.
is a household name in Nimasa. We all know. We know how to be an astute administrator. Yes, and very bold and very fearless. And there's somebody out there that is looking up to you and that maybe you are just a secret admirer or a secret mentor. Now let's bring it home to Nimasa. What do you have to say to Nimasa staff on this International Workers' Day 2026?
I'd like to say thank you to all the Nimasa staff for all your hard work. Your hard work is ringing bells all over the world. People are noticing Nimasa and the good work that Nimasa is doing. When I bring it down to the individual, I want to encourage you to not always follow the crowd. I want your individuality to show because all of us have different gifts and the organization will benefit from all your different wonderful gifts. Don't hide it, bring them out.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zainab Kyari, for being our guest on this edition. She has said it to you all there. Be optimistic to the Nigerian worker. Whatever today may look like, she says tomorrow is going to be a bright day. And she said it to Universal staff, keep on working hard. Keep on doing it. Don't follow other people. Be individualistic in your own work. Follow your own lane, and of course, remain focused. And from us in Nimasa, we are saying to you all out there, happy International Workers' Day. Remain resilient, remain careful, remain hopeful, knowing that the future will be bright. And so it's a wrap on this segment. My name is Femi Kumuyi. I remain your host. Thank you, and see you again next time. Bye.